Welcome one, welcome all, welcome back to e-rev TV. We're doing our second take here of the Black Ops Roundtable tonight. We had a pretty good response here from the last week as we had Ted Audi and Ian Tannehill on from SIVO there. So we covered a lot of points for you guys, talking about this upcoming game. We talked a lot about the history of Call of Duty, both in North America and Europe. And tonight we're going to take that a step further as we actually have some panelists here tonight from across the pond. We got some guys from the Euro scene here. They were nice enough to stay up extremely late, but as we are all gamers, hopefully it's not too late. So they're going to be here. They're going to give us some input, and hopefully we'll have a good roundtable discussion tonight. And we'll also have a few new voices, a new voice here for the North American region. So I'll do some introduction here for you guys tonight before we do a little bit of a recap of last week's talk. My name is Eric Wanson-Pauly. I'll be your host for the night. If you guys don't know me, started out in the COD community with EGLN writing department, covered WSVG sparsely in Dallas, and moved on to help found e-rev TV, and been shoutcasting and covering the COD series ever since then. So covered, let's see, three lands in North America for Call of Duty live, and had a lot of fun covering the game. So that's sort of my resume for you guys. I've watched the game a lot, and I'm really here more as a mediator than as a panelist. So that's my spiel for you guys. We're also going to have, from across the pond here, we're going to have Vanner here from Vita Nova, and we'll have Ted Audi again here, Mr. Sang himself, from North America. We're going to have Neil coming over all the way from the other side of the Atlantic there as well. He's going to be here from Fnatic, higher up in the organization there. And a familiar face for you guys here in North America is going to be Juvenile from the Taking Our Talents to South Beach /Loaded/Nexus early team there in Call of Duty, who is also going to be working with CG here in the near future. So there's our introductions from me, but I'll let these guys go on here, starting here with Vanner, to go on and give them a little bit more of a spiel about themselves and what they do in the COD community. So Vanner, take it away.
Hi, I started out playing back in COD 1, been in the scene ever since, attended numerous LANs, been in numerous teams, and I'm now working behind the scenes as the Vita Nova Communications and Marketing Director. I do quite a wide range of things for Vita Nova, and basically we work behind the scenes in improving the European scene in any way we can. We initially worked with the American scene, but have since pretty much ceased to work with the American scene, but hopefully we can start working again with Black Ops.
All right, next in line here, I would definitely look forward to that. Ted, go ahead and introduce yourself to the people out there.
Well, hi again, everyone. Ted Audi, otherwise known as Sang. I've been playing COD since COD 1. Came up in COD 2 just blogging about competitive gaming because I really suck at playing. And from there, everything really just kind of took off. I worked at Amped Esports, as you all know. Helped bring Call of Duty 2 to the WSVG. Worked for Pandemic, covering in Call of Duty 4. Done some adminning work for SIVO, some shoutcasting work for EGLN, e-rev, and a few other organizations. And right now I'm just trying to make Call of Duty the best it can be.
And everybody appreciates that. Juvenile, go ahead and take it away with your bio there.
Hey, Juvenile, obviously, I pretty much played Call of Duty since the beginning, since COD1, COD2, COD4, obviously, and most people just know me from Loaded, EG, and Nexus Gaming, and currently I'm the head admin at CG for Black Ops.
Alright guys, we did have Neil in here, higher up here from Fnatic. He's having some ping issues, which I guess can be expected, connecting all the way from UK to Chicago. We'll see if we can get things adjusted, get him back in here, and if he's back in, we'd love to have him there. Again, Neil perhaps won't be joining us tonight, as he was on and was around, so that's nobody's fault there. So just to reiterate what we went over last week, again, it was just myself, Ian Tannehill, and Ted Audi it's actually a couple weeks ago, but we posted it last week, just to go over sort of what we talked about last time, and give you guys a quick rundown. Let me pull up our talking points list here. we covered for you guys. We had our sort of life and death of Call of Duty 4 in the North American scene. We talked about Modern Warfare 2, why it failed. We talked about World at War and why it failed. And then we sort of moved into the Black Ops Roundtable of, this promise from Treyarch for these dedicated servers, the mod tools, making this game PC competitive friendly. And then we talked a little bit about the game types. Maybe we went way off the point here. We talked a little bit about currency in-game, like Counter-Strike. And then we sort of the thing that we really wanted to reiterate is moving away from the stigma in North America as far as Counter-Strike being the competitive game. And then we also talked about the risk of playing this Black Ops game too early competitively in North America, as far as perhaps making this game or hoping this game or forcing this game to be more than it is before it's ready. So that's what we covered last week. We're going to reiterate on some of those points, and also take a look at some new things this week as well. So first and foremost here, we are going to be taking a look at the Euro side here. So as we take a look here at Vanner is actually going to be who I'm going to refer to here for his expertise, as I stumble over my words there. In some loose order here, can you sort of give us a state, Vanner, of the Call of Duty 4 scene in Europe, whether it's league and LAN-wise, and sort of just the state of the union as far as Call of Duty 4 competitiveness is in Europe right now?
It's pretty good at the moment. It's been a bit quiet since the Antwerp Esports Festival at the end of July. We've had the one event, which was DS Rack. I believe about 11 teams went, but it was hosted on a Monday and a Tuesday, which had quite a big effect on the amount of sign-ups. We've got a lot of online cups, mainly Esports Heaven provide really really excellent cups with great prizes on a regular basis. Those are keeping the community active. I mean, the last Esports 7 Cup we had I think it was 128 teams sign up in 9 hours or 12 hours. So we've got a lot of teams playing at the moment, and we've got I think there's about 6 or 7 LANs planned for the first 4 months of 2011. Now, I mean, they're mostly open to if the community was to go to Black Ops, they would change to Black Ops. But at the moment they are COD 4 events. I mean, we're in a good stage. I mean, it's a lot more positive than it normally is in the winter. In the winter, Europe normally dies, and you won't have many games being played, and teams just generally going active, and it's quite negative normally. But there's a good vibe around the community, and the last few days there's been a pretty good vibe around Black Ops. A lot of top players have been supporting it, which is quite surprising, because normally you get players almost fear change. They fear that they might not be a top team anymore, and that kind of puts them off going to a new game. But a lot of teams and players have spoken really positively about Black Ops and how they feel it could potentially change the community for the better. More players, and I mean, I won't go into too much details, but things like different game types, things that we'll probably come to later in the show. But at the moment it's all positive. We're just waiting for the next few days and see what Black Ops is like. The general feeling is, let's try it out and see how it goes.
And that's, at least from the North American perspective, I mean, your slow times were better than our fast times over here as far as the amount of events you're able to organize for Call of Duty 4, and I think I can speak openly that we're all envious of that. But, we have our own hurdles here as far as, geography and sponsorship money and all those kinds of things, which perhaps we'll get into a little bit later as well. And I think you bring up a point that we touched on, as far as North America goes, but perhaps not quite as dramatic for you guys. Is I think you have a sustainable community in Call of Duty 4 as of now, and with us, it's really a do or die sense here with Black Ops in North America as far as this Call of Duty community goes. Whereas, if Black Ops fails, if Black Ops isn't the game that we need it to be, or we can't make it the game that we need it to be, then it's pretty much sayonara for the COD community in North America. So we'll touch on that again a little bit later here. And let's move down here as we take a look. I'm going to skip down a little bit here as these are some loose talking points. And as you mentioned, that you have some openness as far as moving to a new game. if it's mod ready and that sort of thing. But we've also seen sort of a sway here in North America, perhaps on game types and that sort of thing that we may see in Black Ops, where Ted spoke very well on the last cast here. I'm going to let him take the mic here, sort of talking about this connection with Counter-Strike that Call of Duty 2 had that has led us to where we are, sort of in the search and destroy scene right now, Ted. So if you could reiterate sort of what we talked about last week and perhaps the changes in game types we might see.
Yeah, it was just a point I brought up during our last cast, how when Call of Duty was originally released, Call of Duty 1 that is, Counter-Strike was essentially in full stride, and it was the #1 esports game. It was where all the money was, where all the competitors were, and it's really what every other game out there wanted to be. Now in the esports community, we're seeing other games really take the center stage as far as where a lot of the money is. Counter-Strike's still there, but the numbers are dwindling, and so is the money. StarCraft 2 has come on, and it has just grown immensely over the time since it has been released this summer. Heroes of Newerth has seen a lot of support. League of Legends a lot of support, and obviously World of Warcraft continues to its massive growth. So we see these titles more and more become the center of esports and less Counter-Strike. So at the end of the day, we have to think to ourselves, is the reason why we're playing Search and Destroy mainly because we've modeled it off Counter-Strike to attract the main sponsors, but now that Counter-Strike is not the main game or the most prevalent game, we need to think about moving on to a different game type, if that's at all possible, to maybe make our game more accessible to the broader audience. Because I know of a lot of general Call of Duty players just in Call of Duty 4 who just really don't get the very strategic, very competitive search and destroy that we play, because they play a lot more fast-paced, whether that be search and destroy itself or even other game types. So I think we really have to explore the idea of moving past search and destroy as the main competitive game type.
All right, that's very eloquently put there. Again, that there's been this tie in the past, and also the skill gap once again comes into play there, Ted, as far as that search and destroy game type goes. And we talked a lot last week about the skill gap in these games. And Vanner, I want to come back to you. I'm going to have to pick on you tonight, as you're our only panelist from Europe right now. What have you seen happen to the skill gap in Europe since the rise and fall, so to speak, of the popularity of Call of Duty 4? Because I know you guys have taken a hit, the same as us, just not as big as far as the events, the sponsorship money, the teams. What have you seen as far as the skill gap goes? Because here in North America, even during the peak of the game, we had two teams that you guys are familiar with in Europe. We had Pandemic, we had EG, and I mean that was it for North America. And it was every event in North America. It was always who's taking third, because Pandemic or EG are going to take 1-2, just period. That's the way it was in random order, of course, but that's just the way it was for so long. And then we saw a variety of teams in Europe, at least from our standpoint of looking at you guys, and it was so much different from that of Call of Duty 2, where in North America we had 5, 6, 7 teams that could knock each other off any night, and then we moved to Call of Duty 4, and suddenly it's a two-man show for a very long time, and sponsorship dollars and travel money and all those kinds of things played a big role in that. But what's the skill gap like right now in Europe? I mean, is it pretty broad? Are there a lot of teams competing? Is it a one two-horse show?
It's really difficult to say. When Call 4 first came out, it was very, very random. I think there's a few factors for that. I think mainly there was a transition period between the top players in COD 2 and the kind of new wave of talent coming through. You had like the TLRs, the Diablos, Sokolon, looks of those guys coming through, who were semi-decent players in COD 2, but teams and players that you'd never expect to come top 16 at a LAN event, and suddenly they were getting top 3 finishes at every LAN they attended. It was kind of random for the first 12 months. I mean, AEF, there was a number of teams on the first AEF in 2008, there was a number of teams on a very similar skill level. The end of that summer, the game died a little bit for us over here, and became a little bit more predictable. There was the old button bashers lineup with Stevie, Svo, Moff, and those guys, and they really battled at the top with probably Dignitas and a couple of other teams, and it's really been like that since. In 2009 you had TCM and Fnatic and Reason probably at the top, and then 2010 it's been a bit of a three-horse show really, three-horse race. You've had Fnatic, you've had Power Gaming, and you've had the former HTK team, now TCM team at the top. At the moment I can't see past those three coming top three at every event. Online's a bit random. Those teams lose from time to time online. We've seen a few results in the latest ESH Cup. Fnatic lost 2-0, and a few other teams have lost games they would normally win. I think TCM also lost to an Asuba team that you'd expect them to beat 99 times out of 100. At the moment you've probably got what you guys used to have in America with Pandemic and EG. You've got those three teams are a good level above everyone else. There's the recent Tech9 top 10. The top three was very clear, and then there was probably 10 teams that could argue they could be fourth spots. That's how random it is below those three teams. It's kind of good for the scene in a way, because you've got all these teams knowing that they're on a very, very similar skill level. We've seen a few new teams form and go straight to the top. It really is. It's those three teams, and then it's very random underneath. There's probably 25-30 teams that would fancy themselves at coming top 8 at a LAN event, simply due to the fact that there's just not a lot to separate teams. I think it comes down to the big tournament experience, the LAN experience. You've got guys in Fnatic that have been to 25 events. You've got guys in Power that have been to loads of events together. They've barely changed lineup, and then you've got the TCM guys who are a real solid five. Who they've been a team now for pretty much, I think, 2 years, maybe 2.5 years. I think it shows the dedication. If you keep a solid five, how far you can go. I think just a big tournament experience. Those pressure moments come up, and their players always go big, and that's what separates them. And that's really how it is at the moment in Europe.
All right, very well put, Juvenile. Can you? As you've played at the high level of Call of Duty 4 in North America, as well as against international teams, can you give us your point of view, just to take a step backwards, from Call of Duty 2, Call of Duty 4, to where we are now, and then where we can potentially take Black Ops as far as that skill gap goes, because I think you would agree that it's the way Call of Duty 4 ended up was bad for our community.
Pretty much now it's pretty much the same way it's pretty much been. It's pretty much loaded on top for pretty much the end of COD4. There was Pure for a while, they ended up dying, and then BVV and a few other teams pretty much right under that. For Black Ops, for it to change, I think changing game types will help a bunch. I think there will be a lot more new players coming in, because it's not the same game type. SD and CTF, etc. are completely different game types. It takes a different skill to become better or good at either one. For there to new teams to come in, we need new teams from new games, and hopefully some new players like that can step in and get better. I'm not sure what else.
Actually, here, I'm going to give you the mic on this one because you touched on it. Something that you've sort of been promoting as of late, and I find very intriguing from a shoutcasting standpoint, that a lot of people might think you're crazy. I don't know if anybody's told you that, or that it's just flat out going to fail or anything like that, but I like the idea of it because I think it makes it a much more exciting thing for me, but I don't know about the player. Can you talk about your best of three argument, explain it, how that would work for people that don't understand it and that sort of thing, and sort of take us through that?
Well, basically 4 game types I'm trying to push for, and obviously pick 3 out of those 4 would be CTF, SD, Demolition, Domination, and basically between those two it'd either be Demo or SD would be the third one. So CTF and Domination for sure, and then SD or Demo as a third one, which are similar. They're both bomb planting game types, but one has respawning and one doesn't. The only downside I could see to this is it may be a little bit more random because the game types will be shorter. We're not going to be able to play a full match for each one, because that would obviously take way too long for majority of the matches and scrims and whatnot. So we'd have to shorten those a little bit. And if we shorten them to the right amount of time, it honestly shouldn't take very much longer than a normal 24-round SD scrim that we currently play. And doing this will, if you obviously CTF and all those have respawning, so I don't think we'll have to mod the game as much as we would if we had to play SD. Because if you play SD, you pretty much have to take out a lot of the random things because you only have one life. You can die by anything super random. You only have one life. But if you play CTF or Domination, you can respawn, so you can leave in a few of the more random things, cook grenades. You can even leave in perks, depending on and take out certain ones. So that's pretty much where I'm trying to push the game to, because I definitely think it would be the best. I don't know if you ever watch any MLG Halo streams or anything, but it's definitely a lot of fun to watch them play different game types.
Absolutely, and again, from a purely shoutcasting standpoint, from a spectator media, I get to talk a lot while you guys play standpoint. It would be a lot of fun to cover. So, and I do think, as you said, it would bring some randomness to the game, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing, because I do think that would actually attract more people, and that is something that we are in dire need of in North America to get this community jump-started, because I think we're a couple hundred strong right now. And a lot of those, and to speak freely, it's not real organized, it's not real serious, and for it to survive as a competitive community, we need to change that, and the best way to do that, I feel like, is to bring in more people. Now this one's open to all three of you. If you want to give your spiel on this, I would appreciate it. We did see a connection between North America and Europe as far as Call of Duty 4 competition went. We had some cross-linking there, all of it taking place in Europe, of course, because we don't get those big events here in North America, and Ted can touch more on that, as he's got a lot of insight on that kind of stuff. But we did have that cross-linking. We even had some online tournaments where teams from Europe and North America played against each other early on in the peak of the game. And if we go to a different game type here in North America, say if CTF, for example, and this is just throwing you out there, CTF turns out to be fantastic, and we pull in tons of people, and we run CTF leagues, or we run a sabotage leagues or something like that, and we have that mod that everybody can use and play on for that specific game type, and then say Europe sticks with Search and Destroy, for example, and I don't even know if Europe is going to end up going to Black Ops, of course, where if they don't, of course, it won't matter. But that changes the sort of the stigma between that competitiveness that was always there, sort of starting from VCON and COD 2 and climaxing at WSVG Dallas. So if you guys have any thoughts on how that affects the actual stability of the game worldwide, as I feel like we're kind of just a drop in the pond here as far as Europe goes. But does the fact that we may be playing a different game, we may be playing a different game type, affect North American gaming or the European scene? So if any of you guys have anything you want to say on that, just go ahead and hop in.
I definitely think it does affect both scenes a little bit, at least, because obviously Europe has had a few NA teams come over, and it's really good for the organizations and the tournaments and whatnot to say you had international tournament. For North America, I don't think it changes that much. Obviously, there won't be American teams going over to Europe, but if the game takes off, that wouldn't really be needed as much because we'll have our own lands and whatnot. So hopefully it takes off like that.
I think just to make a point, it's I mean, like you said, we have played together online. You guys have come over for events, and in the past, in previous CODs, we've been over to America. Although it's not a huge thing for for the actual attendances of LANs, it's a big thing for the community to say that we have teams competing across different continents. I mean, recently at the Antwerp Peace Sports Festival, we had a South African team over, and unfortunately we didn't have an American team. But that could have been 3 continents attending one event, which is something that is a very good thing to have for a game. So obviously, if Europe stuck with COD 4, America went to Black Ops, we would lose the potential to have Americans coming over for our tournaments again, which I believe would be a huge loss. And it's something that would also, I mean, it's going to be attractive to sponsors to have teams coming over and competing. Especially I remember recently when you came over to Europe for the Crossfire Intel Challenge 7 Juvenile, that you guys did, I believe you did quite a few blogs, things like that, and the views are very high on that. I mean, I myself was very interested in you guys coming over. I think a lot of Europe was. It was quite an interesting time because once again the big rivalries were coming up. I mean, in the 2008 summer, you guys initially were a lot better than most of the European teams, and then the last event, Lowland Lions managed to pip EG and finally win an event for Europe. But it's always been a very, very close. It was always a very close thing. I kind of always got the impression that after those lands that your scene kind of took a step back from that point onwards. Europe really overtook, but I feel it was more you guys stepping back. And although I remember you coming over for I-35, I think it was, as EG, and the game in Europe had remained fairly competitive, but the final wasn't competitive at all. And I felt you guys at CIC7, you kind of lacked a bit of a competitive edge to you. I don't know if that's perhaps a lack of competition, but it kind of took the gloss off the 2 continents competing. It was the same this summer when the South African team came over. They didn't do themselves justice, and it's a shame because I'm sure everyone would love to see a big game, a big playoff game with 2 teams going at it. I mean, we saw it recently at the ISRAC for CSS. You had Dynamic Gaming come over and got all the way to the final. A lot of Europe didn't think they'd get anywhere near it, and it was great to see. And by the end of it, before the event, it was a lot of flame going around, a lot of abuse. But by the end, the whole of Europe had this huge amount of respect for Dynamic. They come over and proven to everyone just how strong the scene is, and I'd love to see that again. I don't think it will ever happen again in COD 4. I think COD 4 is pretty much gone over in North America, but perhaps if we could get those rivalries going again, it would be something. I mean, it's something that I would love to see again. It's something that's got to be attractive to people watching the game, and I just think it would be a very, very positive thing for the game. So it would be a shame if that was lost.
And that's absolutely. I'll let Ted jump in here because I know he had something to say there. And you're right that that was, man, the hype leading up to WSVG for Call of Duty 2 was so much fun to cover. With this back and forward here between the who's the best in the world, really, and it's hard to call yourselves the best in the world until you've played everybody, and it's just not good for gaming when there's not enough people to play to really take that title and taking the glamour away from it. And really what happened in Call of Duty 4, the game really just took a complete nosedive after that summer of 2008 where the American teams did do so well in Europe, and then the release of World at War, that game flopped and the community was really just never the same after that. The level of competitiveness just completely dropped there from my standpoint. But Ted, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I can't not agree with that. I mean, I was at those events in 2008. I was just traveling with Pandemic, and EG was hanging around because we were the only two American teams there. And I remember how much time that those guys put into practicing and going to those events. And like Vander said, I mean, they were really, really intense. And after that, you're right. The North American scene was really never the same. But kind of going back on what was originally said about, what if Europe goes one way, North America goes another? I think in some respects, people are going to go where the money is to a certain degree. So right now, Europe is going really strong in Call of Duty 4, but there just isn't enough money there right now to keep North American players interested in the series. If Black Ops for some reason absolutely flops, then the North American community is pretty much, not we're pretty much doomed essentially. But if the European community has enough money invested into it, then I think there is a possibility that the North American scene could possibly continue with Call of Duty 4. It's unlikely. I mean, it would have to be a lot of money, but I don't see that happening. On the flip side, if Black Ops is released and it's successful, I think you could see Europe switching over if there is money on the American side. It's an extreme long shot, but if IEM, the Intel Extreme Masters, switches over and picks up Black Ops, I think we would see a really big united front as far as international competition, because IEM is an event that crosses multiple continents, and they have tournaments in multiple locations. So at the end of the day, as sad it is to say, that you go where the money is, and that kind of goes back to something I was saying earlier in that last cast about the strength of the community and the strength of esports in general revolves around this three pyramid triangle of the tournament organizers, the teams, and the media, and how the sponsors interact with all those, and how each one of those points needs the other in order to attract those sponsors and thus bring money into the system.
And excellent point there, Ted. And just my own thoughts on that, and I'll reiterate what I said last week, that I couldn't agree more with the sense that the esports world, it has its own economy, and we'll touch here briefly while we're on the subject here, as we did last week, about how the money for full sponsorship for teams plays a huge role in how successful a game can be in North America, whereas in Europe, it's been that way for a decade, as far as the sponsorship dollars are there. The competitive esports scene is so much bigger and more stable, and just a broad experience in Europe. And then with the life of Call of Duty 4, as we talked about last week, we had pretty much like 2, maybe 3 fully sponsored teams as far as travel, or at least help with travel to get to these events. And that of course comes back to Ted's point of money. And I can't help but think that that's sort of the catalyst for all of that is having a good game to play. I feel like that's the starting point, for that whole process to take place. So, I'm crossing my fingers anyway, from my point of view, for Black Ops to be that jump start to get that cash flow going again for the sponsors, for the teams, for all of that symbiotic circle or triangle to get working that Ted spoke about. One of the last points we're gonna talk on here, between Juvenile, from you now have a league standpoint as well as your player standpoint, as being a professional player in North America for long as you have. Vanner, of course, your experiences with Vita Nova, and of course with all the leagues that you guys work with. If you guys, and I realize that again, COD 4 is your focus right now, but of course Black Ops is on the horizon for you guys. So just give me your input. And Ted, as we spoke last week, we'll have his points as well on how soon is too soon to play this game in this current panelist group opinion. So what are the risks that you guys think we run playing this game too soon, hurting this game before it's actually ready to be played? So Juvie, I'll let you take the lead on that.
As I said earlier, I don't really think we should be modding the game very much. So I'm not sure if it's going to be if you could even play it way too soon. I think maybe 2-3 weeks into it, you can get a fairly well made out mod for the game. The game comes with bare bones, which is you can pretty much take out or add anything you want. From what I've read, is perks, guns, etc. You can take out or add in whatever you want as far as those go. So I'm not sure if we can really play it too soon, to be honest. The game if it comes out the way I think with Bare Bones, I really don't think it can be way too soon. I think pretty much the way Ian says it, a golden month. I think that probably sounds about right.
All right, Vanner, your thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think the first few weeks of the game, the first few weeks in COD 4, I played the game a hell of a lot, and it kind of it worked its way into we kind of worked our way into playing competitively. First few hours I was running around with the level 1 guns. I think it was an M16, not knowing what the hell was going on because I'd never seen this ranking system before. And slowly we worked out how to host our own servers. We slowly worked out how to turn certain perks off, how to mod the game, and it just progressed from there. We didn't have tournament. I mean, we had a LAN the first weekend of the game, but I mean that ran on very basic rules, trying to make it as much like COD 2 almost. Getting rid of everything we can. But from there, we just it just progressed. Small changes all the time, which I thoroughly believe improved the game throughout, and that went on for a long while. We still have a pro mod being worked on for COD 4 that's going to be released very, very soon. That's just small changes. I mean, nothing major. It's mainly a few bug fixes, things like that, but it's still being worked on. And I think the best way with Black Ops would be to play it and enjoy it for a couple of weeks, not try and do too much. Just get rid of the stupid perks that can't be used properly. For example, you get these nukes, you get planes, you get things like that. Get rid of that kind of stuff and just enjoy the game how it is, and start seeing what works and what doesn't. And I don't think having tournaments in the first month of the game would be a good idea. However, I think if there was something to look forward to, and to kind of base them, start building the mods for, or a way, a real standardization of the game, say about a month's time, maybe 6 weeks' time after the game's release.
Let me, real quick, before we go to saying here, as you guys have made this, a commitment, if I can call it that, to Call of Duty 4 with the work that you guys have done in the past, Vanner, do you guys see that perhaps there's a little bit of a test bed here in North America for you guys to look at as far as Black Ops goes, and where we take it, or where we attempt to take it early on? Where are you guys going to stick to your guns in Call of Duty 4 and sort of see if we can fight our way out of the wet paper bag, so to speak, over here? Or, are you guys going to jump into it right away?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, tournament-wise, there's nothing really going to be happening. The general consensus, you've probably got a corner of people just saying it's going to be rubbish before they've even probably watched the video on YouTube of the game, just judging it on who's making it, things like that. But there's a fairly decent portion of the community that are going to give it a good crack, and I think if the game stands up and the game is good, then things will go from there. There's not really too much on the COD 4 horizon for the next month. There's going to be a couple of online tournaments, but there's nothing that's going to make people say there's no point in playing Black Ops because this is coming up. I think what will happen is players will try it, and I think we'll know very soon whether it's going to have a chance in Europe to really take off. I know if there is that chance, then I definitely look into it, and it's something that a lot of people would be interested in doing, because we all realise the big positives for this game to take off. The start of COD 4, it exploded with players coming over from so many different games, and the scene was quality. If we had COD 4's community the way it is now in Europe, if we had that kind of mirrored in America, and with all these new players, the opportunities there are really endless. You've got, we spoke before about things like the Intel Extreme Masters, these big tournaments. It wouldn't take a lot for one of those to take a serious look at Black Ops if it had the support of a lot of players and the community that really went for it. And this game potentially could be massive. It just comes down to the game itself, and I really do think we'll know pretty quickly how it's going to turn out.
All right, Ted, I'll pose this question to you a little bit differently. Vanner, very, very valid points there. as you've sort of made your statements, which I completely agree with as far as the timetable goes, as far as Black Op goes. But I mean, I guess does anything here said tonight sort of change the way you feel about the timetable on how soon is too soon, or I mean, from your standpoint as sort of an esports analyst that you are, what's your words of advice as far as things you would do here early on in this game?
Well, I mean, I think Juve and Vanner, have hit on pretty much everything there is to say. Juve made a good point about not wanting to mod the game too quickly, and to completely destroy it, and I think that's something that we really have to take a look at. I think at some level that we need to move outside of our comfort zones as far as competitive gaming. And I'm not just talking about game types, I'm talking about just in general. For instance, right now we still have so many communities, so many people using IRC. IRC is a dinosaur technology. IRC is completely isolated. If someone who has no idea about esports wants to get into the scene, they have to go research, how do I get on IRC, what do I do, this, that, the other thing. And the same thing goes to game settings making. So if we can make it so that a person who just purchases the game, outright, can play our settings of the game faster, then that's a good thing. Okay, and that's one of the things I mentioned as well about how necessarily how fast we can get the competitive format up, but how well it can be extended such that we can have every team scrimming it all the time. And I think that's one of the real things that helped with the success of Call of Duty 4 was we had that mod warfare mod. Yeah, it wasn't the best modded, the settings weren't exactly the greatest, but everybody can scrim it, and that's really where the success for the competitive community can come from early in the stage, and then later, as Vanner and Juvie said, we can refine it and really make it a solid competitive format.
All right, guys. We're close to our 45-minute mark here. I'm going to try and keep it there. I want to thank all three of you guys for coming on here tonight and giving us your thoughts and maybe perhaps for the North American Call of Duty community, your prayers. Yes, we really need this game to work out to sort of stay afloat here. I do for all three of you. A spot's always open for you here. We're going to try and do this weekly, at least for some time now, throughout the Black Ops release. If you guys are still tuning in or just perhaps joining us, we're going to be doing an e-rev Black Ops release party where we're going to show you guys some in-game footage. We're going to do a couple pugs between a couple teams that we're going to line up and just have a little fun with it. It'll be real casual, like just to give some people a look at the game and a look at maybe some of your more famous COD names playing it, so to speak, if you haven't bought the game yet and those sort of things. So make sure you guys stay tuned to e-rev TV for that, as well as I'm going to plug our Steve OP TF2 coverage for e-rev TV as well. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. Also, a big announcement coming up from e-rev TV as far as an event that we've landed some rights to. So we'll be announcing that pretty soon as well. So I'm going to let you guys go down through and give us maybe your last thoughts or any plugs you guys have, sponsors, friends, family, whatever you guys want to do. So Vanner, you're the one staying up so late for us tonight. Why don't you take the lead on that and give us any plugs or last thoughts you have there?
Okay, well, yeah, it's been a real privilege to be here, and I think we've covered a few very important subjects. I think now we've got a few days to release. This is the time now to try out the game, and let's see how we go from there. I think Europe's ready to give the game a good shot, and I think America's ready to really go for it, and let's give it our best shot, and if the game works out, that's fantastic, and if not, then we'll see from there. But be a very interesting couple of weeks now.
All right, Vanner from Vita Nova, I really appreciate you coming on here tonight, and I would love to have you again in the future if it's a time thing that we can work out. So thank you again, man. Let's see here, Ted, your final thoughts again.
Thanks for having me. I think everyone in the Call of Duty community, like Vanner and like we've been saying, just exercise a little bit of patience and open minds, shall I say, with Black Ops. And follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/TedAdi, my blog, diverse.com, and I'll see you guys around.
All right, and Juvenile.
Yeah, like I said, thanks for having me on. And like Ted said, keep an open mind about the rule sets and whatnot. Hopefully you guys will start pushing for best of 3. Obviously keep an eye out for Cyber Gamer, and someone sponsor my team.
That's a fair plug. So, okay, guys, my name is Eric Winston-Pauly. I was your host for the night, and make sure you guys stay tuned to e-rev TV for all your esports media coverage here in North America, as once again we're the only casting company still actually casting shit. So make sure you guys stay tuned to the tuned for that. We're also pretty good at it, so whatever. And let's see, yeah, that's going to do it for us tonight, guys. So for myself, Juvenile, Ted, and Vanner, as well as Bobcat doing the recording for us tonight, this is e-rev TV. We're out of here. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys at the Black Ops release party